What is going on, guys? This is Skyhound, also known as Xavier Pierce, Geek Archivist. So, by now, you guys already know that I play Honkai Star Rail for quite some time. I've posted a few videos, here and there on certain chapters. But today is going to be one of those reaction analysis type videos. For those who are actually going for Castorice, I pretty much already knew from the get go that this was going to be tragic. And even though I know that when I saw the screenshot that was going to be used for the animated short, I know for a fact that since they are drawing from Greek and Roman mythology in terms of story and the like, the way how they try to connect this and then make it, an interesting story, I think from my observation, they're doing okay. But also to give a bit of perspective, I've had this book for quite some time. I've used this ever since I was in high school and I've always kept it. Why do I keep books that were from way back in the time? Let me be 120% clear. I learn more from those who are dead than those who are alive. Why? The reason for this, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the fact that the events, the experiences of those past people who have written iconic books. Take, for example, the late George Orwell, his book, 1984. It has been constantly cited numerous times because of, modern events. Now, while I would put that in like a book channel, which of course I do have a section for that and I'm working on it, the point with this is that Edith Hamilton Mythology, this does cover particular bits with regards to the mythological figures that some of us are familiar with. Take, for example, Hyacinth. There is a section in the book with regards to flower stories. Hyacinth, as I found out, obviously is a type of flower. Now, will I get into that eventually? But at the moment, there is one particular story that one would argue is in reference to Castorice. From my understanding, and I've seen this in the comments, they say that it is kind of like the whole Hades and Persephone type of thing. Now, I will be reading from that section towards the end. But in the meantime, let's get started with this reaction, analysis video, shall we? Okay, guys, so this is the Japanese dubbed version of the exact same animated short. While I have not watched the English version, I figured that since there's captions, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. I just need to hear how it sounds like in English. But there are nuances between the different languages. The ones in, Japanese, Chinese, or Korean, there's a certain nuance when these actors are playing these characters and then bringing it to life. I'm not throwing shade at all of the voice actors. There are some that do a good job. However, there are some fans who are clueless about not just life in general, but proving the fact that they just look at the surface and fail to go deeper. That's the problem with a certain number of them. Now, one thing I do realize with Castorice is that when I was playing the game, the people were, you know, keeping their distance from her because of her ability. Imagine for a fact that you have something that makes you different from everyone else, and you're unable to even interact with them. The only other fictional character that I can think of right off the top of my head, if I'm going into pop culture here, is Rogue from the X-Men. Think about that context for a moment. Being unable to have physical contact without hurting that person. Here's another example that I could think of off the top of my head. While I have played the mobile game NIKKE, Goddess of Victory, there is one particular NIKKE character who is so strong but is unable to control her own strength. While it is from a different game, you do sort of get the context. Now that I got that little bit out of the way, I do noticed that there was a poem here. Let me find it right here. And yet, it's pretty tragic from looking at it. Don the crown that halts life, even death itself favors lowered eyes. Walk through the palace of farewells, connect to the world of the departed. Amid the icy depths and funeral hymns, days and nights bow over this snow-covered land, becoming become the only song here. All sighs flow from her fingertips. All words of comfort are stopped by her hands. All cries of grief are swallowed by her palms. Honestly, I will say this, that considering the fact that, you know, we only have very little to go on regarding Castorice's background, there is no denying, since they are going straight from Greek and Roman mythology, that there is likely some references again to some stories. As I mentioned from the start, some people said in the comments, I just checked it on Twitter, by the way, they mentioned about Persephone and Hades. But a little bit more on that, I will go a little further after I finish the story, reading it towards the end. But there is another bit, again, pop culture wise, where I have come across this story. With that being said, let's get started on this short, shall we? And just like that, oh, that's her when she was small. So I can see there's a reference to the poem already. But this young girl who sees her, the mother's like, don't get too close. You can't. A deer? Interesting how I read in the comments they say that a deer represents peace. That's a lot to really lay out on a kid, especially when they have abilities that they didn't even ask for. Especially when they can't understand like what they mean by peace, which is too vague for them. Even with gloves, she can't even touch it. Now this is interesting with the whole flames and the children dancing around, and then you see Castorice there. Oh, the girl from before. Oh, poor Castorice. Jeez. I knew this music actually like works well and all, but damn. This reminds me of something right here, this segment, but I'll get more to that towards the end. I will say that I do like how the art does sort of like give the obvious description here. And she's back to where she was once pilgriming to, at least with the priestesses. Huh. That detail's a little interesting. Oh, and she's already old. The same girl. Oh, man. Huh. The details there, I noticed though, you notice they all roughly say the same thing. Oh no, she had to say it. Oh no, she's gonna do it, isn't she? Oh no. Oh man. All she wanted was a hug. I mean, I get the context and all, but seriously, the fact that she can't actually have physical contact or even interact with the animals. Every flower once bloomed with pride. Yep, I was right. It seems as though on all of those tombstones they all say the same. And there's a doe. Oh, the eyes. Huh. I wonder why they're like that. Oh man. I mean, I won't lie guys, like this was rough to watch. Even though I've seen it like numerous times though, but like reacting to it is another thing, but still just the way how she's unable to again have physical contact, and then we see that dream sequence. I'll just go back to it again real quick, right around here. I mean, again, the way how it provides the context, she's unable to have physical contact, and she just wanted to, be young, be a kid, to actually, have this kind of experience. And again, shows the illustration of that young girl as she's older, and the fact that she just wanted to be with the people. And this part right here, I'm wondering if they're gonna actually go more into like um her backstory. Even though we only get a little bit of it now, it makes me wonder. Okay guys, now before I do actually go over the English bit, like I'm not actually going to be saying much, because I think it's pretty much content wise the same thing. I'm just going to be listening for the most part. But before I actually do, um, the reason why I mentioned about this book, Edith Hamilton's Mythology, I've had this book ever since I was in high school, and I was taking British literature at the time. And now this book was done in 1942. However, this edition of it was done in April 1999 by Little Brown and Company. But the main point of this, before I go into a little bit more on pop culture here, there is a section regarding the two great gods of Earth. And there is a story where they mention about Demeter, who does deal with regards to nature and fertility and all of that. But for those of you guys who are familiar with the story of Hades and Persephone, you could argue with this animation, it does supposedly reference it slightly, just slightly. But to give a little bit of context, I'm going to be reading just a little bit from this tale. But actually, you know what? Before I do that, to give context, if you know the whole Beauty and the Beast scenario, and then the whole Stockholm syndrome, supposedly, where, the captor falls in love, I mean, where, you know, the captured falls in love with the captor and all that, you could make sort of that argument. Now, whether or not it falls entirely in there depends on who you ask. But basically, what happened is that when Persephone was taken away from her mother Demeter by Hades, and then he shows that he quote unquote liked her. What I find interesting is the fact that um, Demeter pretty much grieved when um, her daughter was taken away from her. So there's a point where um, Hermes was actually found both Persephone and her mother, And I'm just going to read it from here, page 54 and 55. Hermes found the two sitting side by side, Persephone shrinking away, reluctantly, reluctant, because she longed for her mother. At Hermes' words, she sprang up joyfully, eager to go. Her husband knew that he must obey the word of Zeus, and sent her up to earth away from him. But he prayed her as she left him to have kind thoughts of him, and not be so sorrowful that she was the wife of one who was great among the immortals. And he made her eat a pomegranate seed, knowing in his heart that if she did so, she must return to him. He got ready his golden car, and Hermes took the reins, and drove the black horses straight to the temple where Demeter was. She ran out to meet her daughter as swiftly as a Maenad runs down the mountainside. Persephone sprang into her arms and was held fast there. All day they talked of what had happened to them both, and Demeter grieved when she heard of the pomegranate seed, fearing that she could not keep her daughter with her. Then Zeus sent another messenger to her, a great personage, none other than his revered mother Rhea, the oldest of the gods. Swiftly she hastened down from the heights of Olympus to the barren, leafless earth, and standing at the door of the temple, she spoke to Demeter. Come, my daughter, for Zeus, far seeing, loud thundering, bids you come once again to the halls of the gods, where you shall have honor, where you will have your desire, your daughter, to comfort your sorrow, as each year is accomplished and bitter winter is ended. For a third part, only the kingdom of darkness shall hold her. For the rest, you will keep her, you and the happy immortals. Peace now. Give men life, which comes alone from your giving. Demeter did not refuse. Poor comfort though it was that she must lose Persephone for 4 months every year, and see her young loveliness go down to the world of the dead. But she was kind, the good goddess, men always called her. She was sorry for the desolation she had brought about. She made the fields once more rich with abundant fruit, and the whole world bright with flowers and green leaves. Also, she went to the princess of Eleusis, who had built her temple, and she chose one, Triptolemus, to be her ambassador to men, instructing them how to sow the corn. She taught him and Celis and the others her sacred rites, mysteries which no one may utter, for deep awe checks the tongue. Blessed is he who has seen them. His lot will be good in the world to come. Queen of fragrant Eleusis, giver of earth's good gifts, give me your grace, O Demeter. You too, Persephone, fairest, maiden all lovely, I offer song for your favor. So you can obviously tell that with that particular story about Persephone and Hades, this is in reference to the seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. The main point here is that death comes for all. None can escape it, even myself. Now, there is a bit of reference to this tale, and I'm going to be shifting gears just a little bit. But for those who are fans of the DCAU, likely know of the film regarding Wonder Woman. Now, in this one, Persephone is actually a female warrior of Themyscira. However, she does go with Hades, and to an extent, she does fall for him. Now, I'm going to be spoiling the film just a tiny bit. It does go a little bit into Diana's backstory, as well as, again, most people overlook Let me say it again. Arguably, a certain number of people overlook this tale. While the reference is there, it does make me wonder how many pay attention to details. Because there is a general that does fight Persephone because she's on the opposite side when they get to, the world of man. And yes, Hades is also leading the charge. But Persephone has her own legion of fighters. So the two of them are fighting, but Persephone does meet her end. But this general points out that she betrayed her sisters, arguably. But Persephone has a different perspective. And at her last breath, she tells this general, yes, we are warriors, but we are also women too. In this case, Persephone, while she did join the wrong side, does have a point. And to an extent, Diana does kind of like, you could say, personify that fact. When, of course, she liked, Steve, of course. Now, with regards to that particular bit, that line, I'm going to briefly reference it anyway. Avatar The Last Airbender. For fans of that cartoon, myself included, we know that there is a point where Sokka actually mocked the warriors of Kiyoshi, one of them being Suki. When the Fire Nation does attack, including Zuko as well, because he's part of it, as he's trying to find the Avatar, he does apologize to Suki, but Suki does repeat that line that I just said. So you can see the parallel between what I was getting at with Hades and Persephone, symbolically and literally, as I was also reading that tale, or at least a section of it. In addition to that Wonder Woman animated film, if you guys haven't watched it, I highly suggest you do. It's pretty good. And then you see that connection with a little bit to Avatar The Last Airbender, at least with that particular moment that I just brought up. Okay, so I know we just went over the whole thing with just the Japanese dub. So I'm just, for the most part, going to be listening to this instead of reacting because I already went over it. But I will give my general thoughts on this whole thing because I will have to reference the trailer for 3.2 just briefly because there's a particular line that was said by Castorice because I know I was watching the whole thing with the live stream that happened recently. But the point is, there's a question that, one could argue that certain characters ask, you know, with all this destruction and, with this so called ability, is there more for me besides destruction? That's roughly the question. Well, now that I just brought up the question, I might as well not even have to bring up the trailer. But you get the idea. Also, quick shout out to Melody Muze, who does the voice of Castorice. I am going to be attending that voice actor panel that is actually right before the special screening of the concert in May. Now, whether or not they are likely to be attending as well, my best guess they will. But I don't even know how many rooms there are going to be for doing the special screening. They're likely going to be in a separate room. They might be with, the rest of the audience that are going to be attending, myself and my best friend included. It would be nice, but I'll just have to wait and see. But again, I'm just going to be listening. Not going to be providing much commentary, but overall, I'm just going to be listening on this. So let's get this going.
secretly embrace them before they go. I can't. These hands, they're too cold. Big sister Castorice, your hands are so warm. Just like anyone else's. So go on. Don't hold back. Give me a warm hug. Can hands like these really be warm?
Yeah. Overall, I will say, again, kudos to the voice actress for this. I came across a tweet where she said that this was definitely emotionally draining. And I say she's got a point because doing characters like this where, the story is so deep, but at the same time having to deal with, you know, tragic characters like this, I can only imagine how many takes that one had to be done. But really, I can see how. Considering we're given the backstory of the character to a degree, it's not easy. But I will say again, kudos to her on, giving it her all on this. Okay, so overall, I will say that the animation was good for this one, even though it is arguably the longest of the animated shorts that we've seen from Honkai Star Rail. But when it comes to understanding, like, the context of these characters, where they're from, and all of that, while the animated shorts do give a glimpse into these characters and they try to provide as much information as possible with the limited time that they're on, I would say that while I did provide context regarding, the symbolism and literary aspects of it, I would say that for what these actors are given in terms of material, they do a good job with what they've got. Again, quick shout out to Melody for voicing Castorice. I think she did a good job, on this one. And while I am likely to be pulling for Castorice, I have to point out that there is a video that I did find recently before I started this recording regarding the free 5 stars that we're going to be given later on. I will put a link in the description down below for that. In addition, Melody isn't the only one who is attending that voice panel that's going to be happening in May. Now, while the global live stream of the concert will be taking place on May the 3rd, at least from what I recall, the special screening is going to be taking place on the 10th. That is roughly a week after. So yes, there are going to be reactions prior to this. However, since I do know that the voice actors that are going to be attending on the 10th are going to have their own panel, my best guess, they might likely be doing their own reactions, maybe later. But would I like to talk to some of them? Absolutely. But overall, I am going to try and, get as much information as I can. But one thing I will admit when it comes to panels, when it comes to seating and then trying to find a spot, if you're not close enough, so like if I'm over here and then the distance to the panel is like up to here, that's a lot of space because, the distance from, me speaking to, in order for them to hear, that's a lot. But overall, again, I don't know if I would say I'd be recording, the actual, at least most of that special screening, since I know I'm not going to be the only one there. I will say that on some of the goods, I know most are going to be asking about it. I'll just say it to you guys right now. There is no way in hell that I'm going to be parting with that. Because they are limited edition. Now, whether or not there are going to be some that are going to be sold on online retailers, you're just going to have to find out. But by that point, most are likely going to have watched the concert anyway and given their general thoughts. Now, I will likely be giving my own thoughts on the concert itself. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this reaction / analysis video. Stay safe, stay sane. Also, for those of you guys who are planning on pulling for either a Castorice or an AXA in 3.2, and knowing most people who like Dr. Ratio, let's not kid ourselves, I am likely going to try and pull for him again, because this is going to be his first rerun. I wish all of you guys the best of luck in your pulls. As a good friend of mine always said, stay humble. And also, best of luck, Trailblazers. This has been Skyhound, also known as Xavier Pierce, Geek Archivist, signing off. Peace.